Welcome to this tutorial on RStudio orientation. Today I'll guide you through the essentials of RStudio, helping you understand its interface and features. And this will set the foundation for your work in R programming. So before we dive in, please make sure you have RStudio open, just like you can see on my screen. If you haven't installed it yet, no worries. You just head to the previous video on how to install R in RStudio. There you will find a step-by-step guide on how to download and install RStudio, along with some setup files, okay, you could download to get the ball rolling. Once you are all set up, you can come back here and then we'll get started here. So once you open RStudio, you'll be greeted with a layout of 4 panes. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can expand and collapse or maintain the panes by default. Okay, to expand a pane, let's say the pane here, you will just click the expand window and it expands. If you want to maintain or go reset it to the default setting, you click the double window icon you see here, and then it sets. If you want to collapse, okay, we could use this button here and then it collapses. All right, so now let's walk through the panes to see what they do and what they are called. So the first pane you see on the top left, okay, is the source pane. Okay, this is where most of your code will be written. Okay, line of code written here and run, okay, is then sourced to the console pane, which we are now coming to discuss. So this is the source pane. Like I said, anything we write here, so if I should write something like 2 plus 3 and I click this icon or this yes, this icon, run, okay, you see it has been sourced from the source pane onto the console. Okay, so to this is the console pane located on the bottom left. Now the console is the workhorse of R. Okay, this is where the script or lines of code, okay, written in the source pane like I just did, are executed. So you can see in the source pane I only wrote 2 plus 3, okay, but then the result of what I wrote was displayed in the console, which is what, 5. The top right we have the environment pane. Okay, the environment is where R stores all objects you've created. However, not every line of code is stored there. Okay, only objects, okay, are stored here. Okay, so you see R says the environment says okay, there is nothing to display, it's empty. Okay, you might ask yourself, but I just saw you run a code here, 2 plus 3, we had a result here, but why isn't it stored here? That's because the environment only stores objects. Okay, objects. All right, so to explain what I mean by it storing objects, supposing we I'm going ahead, but I'll come to that. Supposing we have an object named A, okay, and then we use the assignment operator, that is a less than and a hyphen, okay, and we assign a number like 5 into A. So we are assigning 5 into an object called what, A. When we run this, you see now the environment is no longer empty. It says there is a type of object called A, okay, and it's numeric and it has a length of what, 1. All right, now in the same environment pane we have the history pane, window or tab. Now the history tab basically stores, okay, everything you do here. Okay, so most of the things that aren't stored in the environment, when you go to the history you could see it. And if you want to carry out a code from the history tab to the source pane, you can do that. And if you want to do the same thing for the console pane, you could equally do that. Now to do that, for instance, let's say 2 plus 3, okay, this is in our history tab, so we could click on it, and then we choose, okay, between to console and to source. Okay, so if I want to take this script to the console, I'll just say, or I'll just click to console, and you could see it has appeared here. The same way, if I want to take it to the source code, I'll just say to source, and then you see it has appeared here. Now the panes you see here could be adjusted. Okay, so probably you do not like the setup you are seeing on my screen, and you wish maybe your console could be on your top right corner and probably the environment tab on the bottom left corner. You could change that. So you head to this four squared okay icon you see here. Okay, and once you click, it's a pane icon. Okay, so you see a lot of options given to you. So you could choose the pane layout, and once you choose the pane layout, you could select whatever pane you want to probably be at whatever position you want. Okay, so if you want the console to be at the top right corner, we could use this, and then the console, okay, is now at the top right corner. After doing that, you would apply, and then you click OK. Alright, so let me just cancel that. Okay, so to get things rolling, I would first want you guys to create a project. Okay, and that project is basically going to contain whatever tutorial session we'll be having here. Okay, so whenever a next tutorial session is in, you would call back that project, and then you continue from there. Okay, so to create a project, you have to click on this icon. Okay, it says create a project, so it's a project creating icon. Okay, so we click on that, and once we click on that, this window pops up. We click on the new directory, and then it's a new project, so we select new project, and you give it a name. So we could say tutorial. Okay, tutorial on R. Okay, and then you choose the directory. So I prefer it to be on my desktop, so I'll just leave it that way, and then I create the project. So once my project has been created, you see R gives me a new session, and when you check the title of the window, it says tutorial on R. Okay, so now whatever we are coming to do now will be saved in the tutorial on R's folder. Okay, that's where it's going to be saved. So I want us to write some few lines of codes and get our hands dirty a little bit with R. We'll look at some data types in R. We'll also look at some data structures in R. Okay, all right, so we want to see how to assign values to an object. So when I say an object, basically it's a name, okay, you would want R to keep in mind, okay, and that name will store a value of your choice. Okay, so for instance, if I want R to keep a value of 5, okay, in an object called, let's say, blue box, okay, what I'll have to do is to first type the name of the object, so blue, okay, and an underscore, and then box, because R doesn't permit, okay, you to leave a space between two words. Okay, you need to bridge them together with an underscore. So blue box, and then we assign, like I said, a value of 5. Now in assigning, you use the less than symbol followed by a hyphen. Okay, so now when we run, okay, you could see that blue box has been stored in R's memory. Okay, so if I want to see what is in blue box, I'll just type blue box and run, and it says blue box contains a value of what? 5. In either case, you could decide to also assign in the opposite direction. So if you do not prefer to use the less than symbol followed by a hyphen, you could also go this way. So let's say 6, and then we use the greater than symbol and a hyphen. Okay, so first a hyphen and then a greater than symbol, and we assign it to, let's say, red box. So when we run, it has also been stored. Okay, both this and that perform the same functions, but most of the times, okay, we go with this one. In the same way, we can also assign values to objects using the equal to sign. Okay, so we have, let's say, pink box equal to 7. If we run, it has also been stored. So if you call pink box and you run it again, you could see I'm using a shortcut key, that's Control plus Enter. So since I don't want to be clicking the run button each time, I'll just put my cursor on the line of code I want to run and then use the shortcut key, that's Control plus Enter. So you could see that the ping box, okay, has also been stored in R's memory. Okay, so we will now move on to data types in R. So some of the data types in R include numeric, character, integer, logic, and complex. Okay, so numeric, basically numbers. So let's create an object called number. Okay, and we assign a number to it, so 5. So this data type is what? Numeric. If it is a character, we could create an object called character. So in R, characters are basically in quotes. Okay, so if I want to assign something like hello world, okay, I cannot do this because if you run, you'd get an error. Okay, so even R, you could see that R is suggesting you put it in what? In quotes, double quotes. Okay, so the best thing to do is quote this and that, and then when you run, it has been stored. Okay, so you see in R's memory we have hello world. For integers, we know they are positive or negative whole numbers. Okay, so to store an integer or to create a data type of an integer, we'll first create an object called integer, and then we assign an integer to it. Okay, in R, the funny thing is, though we have the same numbers you use, okay, you need to attach a capital L to it if it is an integer you want to. Okay, so for instance, I'm assigning 7 and then I add an L to it, a capital L. Okay, so now when I run this, it says here that there is an object named integer. The type is what? Integer, and the value in there is 7L. Alright, then the next data type is logic, and logic has to do with basically true or false statements. Okay, so if I want to create a data type that is more of logic, we can first create an object called logic. Okay, and we assign a logical value to it. So let's say true. So true, and we assign. If we check the environment, it says there is an object called logic and the type is logical. So data structures in R basically has to do with ways, okay, by which data is organized, stored or accessed in R. Okay, so we have vectors, we have data frames, we have lists, we have matrices, we have arrays, and we have factors. Okay, so in today's video and for today's tutorial, we'll be focusing more on vectors. Okay, so for today's video, we're going to look at how to create vectors. We'll look at how to subset items from a vector. We're going to also look at how to edit a vector and also how to name elements in a vector. So first, to create vectors, and please note, you could see per every comment I want to give, okay, I make use of the hard this line of code is not really stored in R's memory. Okay, they are just comments to help you or anyone who uses your code to understand what exactly your code is trying to do. Okay, so for every line of code you write, you make sure you have at least a comment. Okay, so now, like I said, we'll deal with vectors first. So now, how do we create vectors? Okay, so I want you to imagine this. Assuming you have a container, okay, let's say a bin, okay, and that bin is only designated for plastics, okay, you could picture that as what a vector is. Okay, so basically a vector has to do with a container that stores the same types of elements, okay, the same type. So if it is characters, it's character data types throughout. If it is numeric data types, numeric data types throughout. If it is logical data types, it is logical data types throughout. You do not mix, okay, the data types in one vector. Okay, so let's create a simple vector of numbers 1 to 10. Okay, so our first vector, so we'll name it container 1. Okay, and we want to store numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in there. But one thing I'll have to tell you is in R, you don't just run this. Okay, you will get an error. Okay, because the elements you are trying to assign here are more than one. Okay, they are not scalar, they are more of a vector. Okay, so to create a simple vector, you would need to make use of the concatenate and two brackets, so an open and a closed bracket. So inside that bracket, you input the element you are trying to assign to container 1. So let's go again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This time, when we run, you see that container 1 has been stored in R's memory. Okay, so it says it has a length of 5, and these are the values in there. So we'll call this a numeric vector. So let's leave a comment here to understand what we just did. So a numeric vector. Okay, now let's create a character vector. So we'll call that container 2. Okay, and we now assign words or characters to container 2. So let's say we want to assign colors to container 2. So we enter the colors, probably red, orange, and yellow. Now, because red, orange, and yellow are characters, take note, we are going to put each word in quotation marks. Okay, so a double quote or a single quote. Okay, so we have, like I said, so red, then a comma, we move to the next one, orange, and final one is going to be blue. Okay, so when we run, container 2 has been stored. So it says it's a character, it has 1 2 3 red, orange and blue in there. Now let's create a logical vector. Okay, to create a logical vector, we want to name an object. So we'll say container 3. Okay, and we are creating logical vectors. So same concatenate, and then we key in our logical elements. So let's say true, could say true, false, okay, true, and then false. When we run, it has been stored. So we have now we want to create an integer vector. Okay, so for integer vectors, we want to use container, okay, container 4. Okay, so same thing. So we're going to deal with integers like 10, 5 and 11. Okay, so we open our round bracket. So 10 capital L, like I said, because for integers you need to append a capital L to the number. Okay, so 10, we have 15. Okay, and then the last one will be 20. So when we run, it has also been stored in R's memory. Okay, so we've created a numeric vector. The next is a character vector. Okay, the next one has to do with a logical vector. And the final one is an integer vector. Okay, so this is how to create vectors in R. Okay, so having created these vectors, we would also like to see how to create empty vectors. Okay, empty vectors. So let's say vectors that contain nothing, but then we've created them to probably store data in the future. Is that okay? So let's create an empty vector. So I would say creating an empty vector. Okay, so to create an empty vector, we're going to use a function called vector. Okay, we want to create an empty vector and we'll use a function called vector. Okay, so let's give a name to it. Let's say empty vector. Okay, and then we assign, and then we call the function vector. Okay, so vector function. Okay, so once you call the vector function, you could see this little window here. It says by default the mode is set to logical and the length is set to 0. Okay, but you could define exactly what that vector, okay, it's going to contain. So if you want that empty vector to store only numbers, okay, you would set the arguments in there. We have the mode argument. So you set the argument in there to numeric. If it is numbers you wish to store in there, you set it to numeric. And then the tab key to get the next argument. So the argument over there is length. So we could say a length of 10, and then once we are done, we run. So the empty vector has been created. So if we call back the empty vector, as you can see here, when you check the console, we have an empty vector with nothing in there. So R has saved it as 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. If you want to create an empty character vector, so this is an empty, so a comment, empty numeric vector. So now let's create an empty character vector. So the same procedure. So we'll create an object. Okay, basically a name. Okay, so empty vector 2, and then we set the mode to character. So you could click the tab key, and then you take the first argument and you define. It has to always be in quotation marks, okay, quotes. Okay, so character. Okay, so we just type character, and the length is, we could use 15, and we run, and that has also been stored. If you call it back, empty vector 2, you could see that they are empty, okay, space ready for you to fill it with the character data types, okay, you want to store in there. Now we've done this for numeric vector, an empty numeric vector. We've done this for an empty character vector. Okay, so I want you to try your hands on creating an empty integer vector. So the next thing we want to do is to learn how to subset values from a vector. Okay, so let's get one of the vectors we created. Let's say container 2. Okay, so let's say we want to subset orange from container 2. So to do this, we make use of the squared bracket. Okay, so let's call container 2. Okay, square bracket orange. Okay, but before, so container 2 square bracket, and then the position, okay, of the value you are trying to subset. So we want to subset orange. So this is the first position, this is the second position, and this is the third position. Okay, so first position, second, and third. So to subset orange, it's in position 2. Okay, so we'll just subset 2, and we have it here. You could see in the console that we have our orange subsetted for us. However, if you want to subset 2 elements, let's say orange and red, okay, we would have to use the concatenate, okay, function. So we concatenate the 2 positions, 1 and 2, and we run, and you could see in the console you have red and orange. Okay, and that same way, if we probably have made a mistake in, let's say, container 1, and we wish to edit container 1, what we can do to edit this is to use a function called fix. So fix what? Container, want to fix container 1, and we run, and you could see that this window will pop up and you can directly edit. So let's say you've written lots of codes, okay, and you wouldn't want to scroll up to go and make any corrections. You can do that here, okay, using the fix function. So let's say we want to fix 3, and make it 9. Okay, once we are done, we save. So if you should call to check what is in container 1, you see it is no longer 3 but then 9. All right, now we want to see how to name elements in a vector. So for container 1, we are only seeing, let's say, 1, 2, 9, 4, 5. But if you want to assign names to each of these numbers, okay, for them to add more meaning, okay, let's say these numbers are just scores of some students, okay, we can assign names to each element. Okay, so to do that, we use the function or the names function. Okay, and then we want to name container. Okay, we want to name container 1. Okay, and then we assign the names we want to give to container 1. So we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, numbers, so we need to assign 5 names to the element. So we could go with Jacob. Okay, we could go with Ezra. We could equally go with Joseph. We could go with Mary, and the final one would be Israel. So when we run, R has done a job. Okay, so if we call container 1 and we run again, you could see that now each value over there has a name assigned to it. Basically, that is how to assign names, okay, to elements or values in a vector. All right, now if you would notice, when I wanted to see the number of elements, okay, in container 1, in order to assign the right number of names to them, I was counting it manually. Okay, we could skip all this. So assuming the number of values in container 1 are about 1,000 and I do not really know, does it mean I'm going to count manually? No. So there is a function called length, and basically it checks or gives the length of an object. Okay, so let's see how it is used. So we call the function called length. Okay, and then length of what do you want to actually know? Okay, so we want to know the length of container 1. So when we run, it says the length of container 1 is 5. Okay, so that is how to, okay, check the length of a vector. Okay, so having done this, let's perform a simple statistics with this vector. So we have container 1 and maybe we want to find the sum, okay, the sum of container 1. So we could use the function sum container 1. Okay, and it says the sum of all these is 21. So what I want you to now do is, before we end, finally, I would want you to save whatever we have created here. Okay, so you could see that because we haven't saved it, the title of this tab is red. Okay, so in order to save it, you go to file, okay, and you save as, let's say, the first tutorial. So first tutorial, and it will automatically be saved in the project folder. So we save it. Okay, so anytime you open R again, okay, and you want to access the file you just saved, you could go to the Files tab, okay, and you could locate it here, and you just click, okay. So if you click, automatically your file, your script will be opened here. Thank you for staying and watching through to the end of this video. I hope it has been helpful, it has been educative. So if you have any comments or questions, you can leave it in the comment section, okay. You could give this video a like as well, and you could as well subscribe, okay.